California State Parks, I would like to welcome you to Hearst San Simeon State Historical Monument, better known as Hearst Castle. As we begin the riding portion of your tour, we ask for your cooperation. Please stay seated at all times and keep your head and arms inside the windows. Please turn your cell phones to mute. If you have trash to dispose of, there will be a trash container when you exit. Bottled water is allowed, but food and chewing gum are not permitted on the bus or during the walking tour. We thank you for your assistance in helping to maintain this beautiful place. The road you are traveling is the same one the art collector and newspaper publisher William Randolph Hearst traveled when he began building this estate with his architect Julia Morgan in 1919. They worked on this project for 28 years. We will pass a large Spanish-style house built in the 1930s as the poultry ranch manager's residence. It is still used by Hearst ranch employees today. All his life, William Randolph Hearst referred to this place as the Ranch at San Simeon, even though in later years he gave it a more formal name, La Cuesta Encantada, the Enchanted Hill. His hilltop estate became one of the most glamorous country houses in America. It was also Mr. Hearst's primary residence on the West Coast, and a place to showcase a stunning collection of Mediterranean art objects, shown against the backdrop of California's beautiful natural landscape. Hundreds of glamorous guests traveled this same road to visit the castle in the 1920s and 30s. But imagine Mr. Hearst first as young Willie, a boy following his father along the winding bridle path that would become this road, climbing on horseback 1,600 feet, or 488 meters, to a hilltop that was often sunny when the fog shrouded the coast during the summertime. Later in life, Mr. Hearst said that the road was so steep and the way so rocky that he only managed by hanging on to the tail of my pony. George Hearst knew California's landscape well, having traveled west as a miner from Missouri in the 1850s looking for gold. The geology that caused these steep hills to rise from the ocean floor millions of years ago was the same factor that brought precious minerals like gold, silver, and copper closer to the Earth's surface, allowing them to wash down the high mountain creeks of the West. Though thousands came west looking for easy riches during the gold rush, few succeeded. George Hearst was a skilled miner and geologist, and became one of America's richest men with investments in Comstock silver, Anaconda copper, and Homestake gold mines. But he never mined in this region. George Hearst bought the land at San Simeon in 1865 as a cattle and horse ranch. He had married Phoebe Apperson Hearst in 1862, and their only child Willie was born in 1863. All three Hearsts grew to love this ranch, and they added to it until it eventually totaled over 250,000 acres, or more than 100,000 square hectares. You will also see open-fronted shelters made of logs that were built for animals in Mr. Hearst's zoo. His love of animals drove him to create the largest private zoo in America, filled with exotic animals from all over the world. You may see herds of tawny animals that resemble mountain goats. They are known as audads and are descendants from Mr. Hearst's original herd, still roaming these hills and mingling with the cattle. Originally, this land was home to Native Americans of the Chumash and Salinan peoples, who lived there for over 9,000 years. It was claimed by Spain after 1769, and then settled by Californio cattle ranchers during a brief period of Mexican ownership. California joined the United States in 1850, soon after gold was discovered. George Hearst bought 3 ranchos and continued to run cattle on the hilly expanses above the Pacific. And 150 years later, this is still a family cattle ranch. The Hearst Corporation runs over 2,000 head of grass-fed beef on these hills today, largely black and red Angus. The cattle graze much as they always have, and depending on the season, you may see them along the hillsides. William Randolph Hearst was 56 in 1919 when his mother Phoebe died, his father having passed away earlier. William inherited this land he had loved nearly all his life and immediately hired a talented and singular architect, Julia Morgan, whose firm was located in San Francisco. Hearst was overheard walking into Miss Morgan's office and announcing he was tired of camping in tents. "I'm getting a little old for that. I'm thinking of building a little something." Well, his little something became this estate of more than 165 rooms, and he chose to build it on the hill which had served as his family's original campsite. Julia Morgan's first challenges were to make a road from the old bridle path, and also to bring water from the natural springs that were located on a mountain almost 6 miles east of this hilltop. To this day, water provided to the estate comes from the same 1.5 million gallon reservoir built by Miss Morgan and Mr. Hearst in the 1930s. Some of it is stored in tanks atop the castle's bell towers. You may also glimpse a 16 million gallon reservoir recently built by the Hearst Corporation to provide water for the current family ranch operation. The Mediterranean climate of this region brings hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters, a perfect setting for the native oak trees known as coastal live oaks, or Quercus agrifolia. These are the large trees we pass, which have spreading low branches, small dark green leaves, and rough brown bark. Mr. Hearst and Miss Morgan designed the road to wind around the trees, some of which are more than 300 years old. On the hilltop, they sited the buildings around the oaks, and occasionally even moved a massive oak out of the way as the castle grew. You'll notice the hillsides are also covered with grasses. With the winter rains, these grasses turn a rich green. In the summer and fall, they change color to a golden brown. Mr. Hearst filled these pastures with his exotic zoo animals. In his day, guests traveling this road would have passed by antelopes, yaks, giraffes, llamas, water buffalo, bison, and more than 100 other species. Most are gone now, but in addition to the audads, today you might see sambar deer and Roosevelt elk mingled with the cattle. Keep watching, and you may also glimpse some animals native to the area, including deer, foxes, and coyotes, as well as the large black birds that soar through the skies, known as turkey vultures. The views of the coastline can be quite spectacular on clear days. So too are the views of the twin-towered structure Hearst and Julia Morgan called Casa Grande, which means big house in Spanish, now commonly referred to as the castle. The road was designed so the castle would appear and disappear as you climb higher. Upon reaching the top of the knoll, we will travel through a landscaped area filled with fruit trees, which supplied some of the food in Hearst's time at the ranch. He grew nearly all his food on site, including beef, poultry, dairy products, and fruits and vegetables. You may also see on the left the remains of a columned arbor known as the pergola. It was a path for walking or riding through on horseback. Its columns were planted with fruit trees, apples, quince, plums, cherries, peaches, and apricots, among others, and it was canopied with grapes. At over a mile in length, it was laughingly referred to by Julia Morgan as the longest pergola in captivity. we near the hilltop, your walking tour is about to begin. We ask for your help again in preserving this remarkable estate. While on tour, please touch only the handrails of concrete and black iron, and avoid touching or leaning against any other objects. When inside the buildings, please remain on the tour carpeting. Flash photography is allowed outdoors only. Please turn off your flash when you go inside the buildings. Your tour will take a one-way route over the hilltop without doubling back, so be sure to take your photographs when you see them. Photography for personal use is very much encouraged, but written permission must be obtained for publication. Please turn off your cell phones or put them on mute. Bottled water is allowed, but no other food or drink. Chewing gum must be disposed of in the trash containers as you leave the bus. We request that you stay with your group at all times. Ask your guides if you need any assistance. And now we invite you to imagine what it would have been like to visit this glamorous estate in Mr. Hearst's time. For him, it was always the enchanted hill. Get ready for your enchantment to begin.
And fishes. We brought tens of millions of people across that front doorway, and it damaged that tremendously. After the artist repaired it, Zdravko Barov, he said he wouldn't fix it again. We're going to sneak through the skinny little side entrance, all right? That's why you'll have to turn sideways. Not Mr. Hearst's choice, not our true choice, okay? And the lighting is lowered inside. That's our fault, being a museum. There are 300 light bulbs in the ceiling. They would be much brighter in Mr. Hearst's time. But we'll finish inside there, because you can have this view all day, but we want to show you the inside. And this is where you would have had cocktails and appetizers before dinner, of course. About 7 p.m. Dinner was about 9 p.m. 5 courses. Then a little free time, and then a movie in the largest room in the main house, all of which we'll see. I'm sorry I can't give you cocktails. Or dinner. This is your imagination working. And as we go through the house, folks, we're looking at a rather boring carpeting. Parents first. His father, George Hearst, was a very successful miner in gold, copper, and silver. Came out with the California gold rush. He's a very patient man. It took him 9 years before he discovered anything, and that was silver. And I hope to see the movie At the Bottom of the Hill, which talks about that and many other things. But it's quite a good quality film. It's on a giant screen like an IMAX theater at the Visitor Center. Again, it's included in the ticket. 40 minutes long, short every 45 minutes. And so his father became very wealthy as a miner. Went back home from California, or from California, Nevada, etc., to Franklin County, Missouri. Married the daughter of the girl next door, 21 years younger, Phoebe Apperson, who became Phoebe Apperson Hearst. Came with him back to San Francisco. They had only one child, William Randolph Hearst, and then he built this estate. And his mother, Phoebe, that girl next door to his father, was a school teacher. And with the money her husband made, became a tremendous philanthropist. Co-founder of the Parent Teacher Association and kindergarten programs in this country, was the first female regent on the board of directors of the California University system, helping build it up. And especially paying a lot of attention to UC Berkeley, paying for buildings to be built there, and taking a lot of young women under her wings, because it's very difficult for women to go back to school today. She's the one that discovered the architect that built this estate, was with her son, William Randolph Hearst, over the entire 28-year period as his elevator, which was at the far side of that room, the opposite doorway that we came in. And they'd eventually lead you in here. He sat here. Mary David's across from him. And if you just arrived today, you're probably sitting near them. He invited you here because he wanted to meet you. You didn't get room service. You couldn't hide out. Not unless you were under a doctor's care. By the way, the room we just left was the assembly room, where he's in cocktails and appetizers, where he assembled before dinner. This is called a refectory. Refectory is the name for a dining room in a convent or monastery. He wanted this to be Gothic in style. The last room, the assembly room, was Renaissance in style, with balance and symmetry. This one is typified by a period where people wanted to look towards God more, and you have the Gothic arch, symbolizing praying hands for looking up, pointing up to heaven. He couldn't find a Gothic ceiling, and had to settle for a Renaissance ceiling with Mary and 12 saints, looking at a ketchup and mustard. Shocking. But if you're a man who owns 94 businesses and you call this your ranch, then maybe it's not going to look like a castle because he didn't name the Hearst Castle, other people did. He did own a castle in Wales, but here on his ranch, this little ranch in San Simeon, which at its largest was about 275,000 acres. The big one was in Mexico, over 1 million acres. Nothing authorized by Mr. Hearst in any way. It attacked his girlfriend too, and that's probably what the mistake was. Because the character that was supposed, well, Cain was the man who was the ruthless publisher, not saying Mr. Hearst wasn't ruthless or controlling or powerful or dominant in any way. But, so you knew the character in the film was portrayed by, it was modeled after William Randolph Hearst. And the man in the film was having an affair while he was still married. So everybody assumed that was modeled after his girlfriend, Mary David, who was a brilliant comedian and a very good actress. But
most people feel like a train to San Luis Obispo and then limousine for 50 miles.
It was shown here for the first time ever a year ago, authorized by Mr. Hearst's great-grandsons. At the large theater, adapted to fit the room rather than the other way around. And so, since this ceiling was clean, you can see what was copied when it was dirty. Because if something is painted to match a dirty ceiling, you're not using dirt to make it darker, you're using paint. So if you look in the corner, it's not a result of a shadow. You see that it's very light until it gets to near the corner, to the edge of the tile. And that's what happens when you copy a dirty ceiling and then you clean it later on. It gives us a chance to show how things were cut down, smaller or enlarged or both to fit. And this ceiling is Spanish, over 500 years old, dating back to 1480. Depicts activities of Spanish noblemen, bullfighting, jousting, that sort of thing. And the tapestry you see on the wall is a mille fleur or 1,000 flower called Hunt of the Stag. And it's one of two he paid a total price of $200,000 for in 1927. That's how much he loved tapestries, things that told stories. That's why his wife and 5 sons wanted a pool here, which you'll have to see later. And this is Julia Morgan, the architect, didn't like her photo taken, didn't give interviews. She said, when I'm gone, my buildings will speak for themselves. This project, this hilltop project that went on over a 28-year period, it's only one out of over 700 projects in her lifetime. She kept full-time hours in San Francisco. This was a part-time job. She'd give up 2 or 3 of her weekends a month to come here.
Up to these platforms, or do they just?
minimize the possibility of collisions and to provide more access to the stunning views. On our descent, we will be looking north and east out to the distant mountains known as the Santa Lucia Coast Range, which runs parallel to the Pacific Ocean along the central region of California. To your left, you will again see the remnants of the pergola, a columned arbor for walking and horseback riding. It is easier to see from the way down. Also pass the animal enclosures used in Mr. Hearst's time for the polar bears. They were given ice on warm days and used their pool to swim in and keep cool. These animal pens were modeled after those in German zoos and were very advanced for their time. In the late 1930s, and Mr. Hearst began to experience financial difficulties, many of his zoo animals were donated to California zoos, including in San Diego and San Francisco. The descendants of his zoo which cause the most excitement today are the zebras, which you may see as you travel south on the east side of Highway 1, mingling with the Hearst cattle. They often graze near the San Simeon campground on the east side of the highway. More of the estate, consider viewing the film Building the Dream on a giant 5-story screen at the Hearst Castle Theater. Showtimes are every 45 minutes all day long through the double doors across from the fountain at the Visitor Center. This 40-minute film depicts scenes from Hearst's childhood, his travels through Europe with his mother, the construction of the Hilltop Estate, and Hearst's architectural collaboration with Julia Morgan. Also available at select times of the year is the evening tour. The castle takes on a whole new atmosphere. Go back in time to the golden age of the estate and experience what it must have been like to be a guest of Mr. Hearst on a moonlit evening. Be surrounded by other guests in 1930s attire and enjoying the grounds. There are many ways to feel the romance and magic of visiting the golden estate. Check our website for some tour times and details. While you're at the Visitor Center, be sure to stop by the gift shop and also to view the free exhibits, which will give you an expanded appreciation of the estate. If you get a hankering to try the Hearst Ranch beef and other products, they are available for shipment and sale at the kiosk at the Visitor Center, as well as being served in the restaurant. William Randolph Hearst went to the expense and difficulty of building his estate at the top of such a high hill. You may also be able to see a long airstrip that he had built in 1945 in order to land a Douglas DC-3C. It was the third airstrip constructed by Mr. Hearst, who frequently flew into San Simeon from the mid-1920s on. It is still in private use. Farther north up the coast, you may see the Piedras Blancas lighthouse, which is still in operation, having been in continuous use since 1874. Tours of the lighthouse are available. Just south of the lighthouse is a cove that during many times of the year is filled with elephant seals. These massive ocean mammals rest on the sand, mate, and give birth in this cove. Extreme caution should be taken when viewing them. There are viewing stations located off the highway. If you'd like to learn more about the region, you can visit the Coastal Discovery Center at San Simeon Bay, located across Highway 1 from the castle entrance at William Randolph Hearst Memorial Stage. Learn about the animals that live in this portion of Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. There are also many opportunities to enjoy the unspoiled coastline in both directions when you reach Highway 1. Walk out on the pier and imagine the area as a former whaling station and a center for shipping and commerce in the late 19th century. Stroll through the surviving village of San Simeon, which is across the highway from the castle. It was a bustling commercial city in the mid-19th century, then a residence for Hearst employees in the years after George Hearst bought the land in 1865, then an estate village that housed castle workers in the years after 1919. Its one-room schoolhouse still survives, as does a store dating from 1852, and several of the warehouses, the oldest of which dates clear back to 1878. Though there were many plans after Hearst's death to build a large resort area along Highway 1, the Hearst Corporation in 2005 concluded a landmark conservation easement that set aside 82,000 acres of land for its original use, family ranching, and protected the rest. 13 miles of coastline were donated by the Hearst Corporation to California state parks, meaning that the land will always be visited in Hearst's and Morgan's Head. William Randolph Hearst said he would rather spend a month at the ranch at San Simeon than any place else in the world. He and Julia Morgan worked 28 years to create the lavish estate we have enjoyed, but it doesn't end there. They also created a legacy